I woke up yesterday and I was like, what is going on? There were at least a dozen articles pushing a plant-based diet for the environment. The Guardian, New York Post, BBC, MSN, Sky News, CNN, Daily Mail, Fortune, Yahoo, and I'm sure I missed a few and that there are going to be more over the next few days. But if this isn't propaganda, then what is? This is literally the next step for world dietary guidelines. Instead of doubling down on the idea that grains are good and meat is bad, heart healthy BS, which is almost starting to fail in a way, they are taking the position that our diets are killing the environment, which is simply ridiculous. Having one child is the equivalent of 60 vegans. Going car-free is the equivalent of 3 vegans. Corporations produce the majority of greenhouse gases. Several of the largest cargo ships produce more CO2 than all land vehicles combined. So why do people think cow farts are causing climate change? What's even crazier is that vegans have the nerve to say that the studies funded by the meat, egg, and dairy industry are so prevalent. And what's the reason behind this? Profit. If people stop having kids, they stop making money. If people stop driving, companies stop making money. Whether it's oil or car companies, the only reason they are pushing the plant-based agenda is for profit. Now, there's plenty of propaganda and research pushing the meat is bad narrative, but all these scientists and organizations have one thing in common. They belong to the Eat Lancet Commission. It was founded in 2013 by Gunhild Stordalen, an animal rights activist. What a surprise! For the Norwegian Animal Welfare Alliance and wife of hotel tycoon Peter Stordalen, one of the richest couples in Europe. So we have this crazy animal rights activist with access to way too much money. This is where big agriculture sees a new profit opportunity. In the past, they've processed cheap grains and oils into processed foods that have essentially ruined America's health. They plan to do the same thing under the plant-based agenda. And unfortunately, I think it's going to work, because if people are consuming all this crap that they think is healthy now and they're sick and they're dying and they don't realize it, they literally have family members dropping dead in front of them, developing dementia, Alzheimer's, all these horrendous diseases. Babies are dying of cancer. There's so much horrible stuff going on right now, and people aren't realizing it, that the plant-based agenda surely is going to work. People are going to continue on this slave diet of grains, reduce their animal food consumption further, and get sicker and sicker. This seems to be more about opening up a new market opportunity as opposed to promoting animal welfare. Climate change is real and does require our attention, but making the systems more sustainable and the population healthier isn't anywhere on that checklist. Big credit and shout out to Frederick Leroy for the research that was done on the affiliation with Lancet and some environmental statistics. One thing to touch on is the beginning of the USDA dietary guidelines in 1979 was based off of profit. You can look into Ansel Keys and Earl Butz and their plan to take animals off of pasture and move them into feedlot operations so that they could grow corn, soy, and wheat, make all these processed foods and sell them, and then feed the excess to animals. It was based purely off of profit. And what people don't know is that grains are so much more profitable than fruits, vegetables, meat, eggs, dairy. The amount of money they have to put in to those foods is far higher than what they do when producing grains. If you look at the prices of corn, wheat, and soy on commercial markets compared to meat, cattle, it is insane. The profit margins are literally hundreds of times higher on the grain-based products. So why wouldn't they try to package them up into plant-based alternatives that people think are healthy? It makes the most sense. At first, I didn't think that the vegan or plant-based agenda was going to be the next step for dietary guidelines, but now it actually is making a lot of sense, and it's becoming pretty clear that this might actually be what their next best position is to further reduce the health of the population and keep their pockets lined with cash. Doubling down on the grain narrative, what they're doing now, the heart healthy stuff, I think it's starting to lose an effect, and I really do think that they've seen it in loss of profit on foods like sugar, processed grains, bread. I'm sure the sales of those foods have gone down substantially over the past few years, maybe even fast food. And now they're trying to recuperate in a way and just changing the formula slightly for all these crap foods that they're making and putting a plant-based label on them seems like the next best step to keep the money flowing in. I don't think there's anything that's big enough or lucrative enough to kind of fight against this at this point in time besides people as a whole spending money with their dollar. And the understanding of the nutrient density of animal foods is certainly not something that's going to be realized in the near future. We've already almost ruined our animal food supply in the United States completely with these feedlot operations. Foods like pork, chicken, most beef. It's not nutrient dense. We can't consume the organs. We can't eat nose to tail. The oceans are becoming polluted. On one hand, I'm glad I was born now because I feel like 20, 30, 40 years from now, there's going to be nothing to eat. One note that I wanted to end on was how crazy it is that these vegans are literally pushing the agenda on their own. Whether it's for their moral, environmental, or ethical beliefs, or they think the diet's healthy, which they're all completely incorrect on, there are people that are pushing this diet so strongly and willing to lie about it to anyone that if you give them any ammunition whatsoever, it is so difficult. It's a religion. It's a cult. You cannot convince someone that their diet is not good for them if they don't want to believe it. It is as simple as that. We have seen this example in every single vegan person. It literally takes the person almost dying, and in some cases, some vegans have died on a plant-based diet. I sometimes think what would happen if Steve Jobs started eating liver every day and fasting, but that's a different discussion to be had. So overall, very clear propaganda. So what would actually happen if everyone went on a plant-based diet? I mean, health would decline, we would see more nutritional deficiencies, but to what extent? The British authorities actually forced some Kenyan groups off of their land and onto a more plant-centered diet, giving them incentives to grow corn. One group actually consumed corn to such an extent that it is now synonymous with their word for food. All of these groups have substantially elongated intestines. Many of them suffer from a horrendous condition. It's called sigmoid volvulus, where the floppy elongated colon twists on mesentery and cuts off blood vessels, causing digestive problems, sepsis, and death. The incidence of this condition among plant-centered East Africans is estimated to be about 10%. The condition is also extremely common in India at rates of 7%. A similar thing happened to people in Japan when they became vegan under Buddhist influence. Thankfully, it's being reversed now, but the extension of the colon also disrupted patterns of hunger and other nasty, nasty things. So this falls in line with everyone's going to be getting gut diseases and issues from consuming such large amounts of plant-based crap. Very, very evident it's going to happen. I'm not too worried about it. Either these people are going to get very sick super fast and doctors aren't going to be able to keep up, or they're going to realize that it's the diet and go back to the way they were eating. So thank you guys for watching. If you guys would like to support the channel, please subscribe and share the video. If you guys want to check out my Amazon shop, Patreon, all that stuff is in the description. If you guys do want to reach out to me for one-on-one consultations in regards to optimizing your water intake, your vitamin D3 levels, exercise, diet, whatever it may be, feel free to shoot me an email, frankatofano@gmail.com, or reach out to me through the contact form on my website below.